What up, guys? What's going on? I hope you guys are doing good. So today's another episode. We're going to talk about van life and the cost of living and traveling through New Zealand. Everything from gas to camps to food, and even touch base on how much adventures cost. And since Nina and I are freelancers and we work on the road, how to kit out your van to have Wi-Fi and enough power to charge your laptops.
All right, so now it's time for you guys to get your camper van. When we were in the market, we found one for about $7,000 that kind of fit everything that we wanted. It was a 98 Toyota Hiace, long wheelbase and high top, which was super important because if Nina and I were living in it, we wanted the most amount of room possible. You can always spend a little bit more money and get something like a Ford Transit, which are kind of like more boxy and bigger in the back. But I feel like for the price point difference, it's much better just to go with the Toyota Hiace. So overall price for camper converted vans are about $1,000 up to about $12,000. Yeah. Anything more than that, you're getting more into kind of like the super sick camper vans that are crazy retrofitted, and maybe even like you're going into like RV zone. So if you want to stay like in the camper van realm, or even the van realm if you're super budget, it's about $1,000 to $12,000. And there's a couple different ways you can start searching for these vans, either by Facebook Marketplace, trademe.co.nz. Sometimes, depending if you're in Christchurch or Auckland, they have these kind of like dealer lots of backpacker vans, but I don't really recommend them, not so much because I've experienced it, but I've heard a lot of bad things. So if you do go with your guard up. My favorite way of kind of getting and searching for vans and stuff like that was actually Facebook. Just Facebook pages. If you go New Zealand backpacker camper vans, you can find a group that they just sell camper vans, and that's literally what that whole page is about. So check that out. That's actually was my favorite way, and I just contacted people straight up and sorted it that way. And also, don't worry too much about the actual investment. You will get it back. Camper vans are like hotcakes over there. They sell and people buy them all the time. People are always coming in. There's such a huge camper van culture in New Zealand. So when I purchased it for $7,000, I had lived previously in New Zealand and I knew that culture existed. So I wasn't too afraid to spend that $7,000. Because I knew I would get it back. And I actually, in the end, I sold it within a week for $700 more than I bought it for. However, that wasn't a profit because I did include a few items that it didn't have when I bought it, such as the solar power system and the internet box, along with all the renovations that we did. All right, so now that we've covered basically what you're gonna do either before you get into New Zealand or once you get in, get that van, there's a couple of costs that come up, one being the registration. So typically registration in New Zealand, you kind of have to register your car for as many months as you want, and you kind of pay as many months as you want. So initially, just to give you an example, registering a van or a car or anything like that costs about $150 per 6 months. And then there's the transfer name fee, which is about $5. Another thing you want to think about is whether to purchase a petrol or a diesel. I bought a diesel, and to my finding that there's an actual diesel tax in New Zealand. So petrol vehicles, it's kind of weird because petrol vehicles don't have a tax to the government that you have to pay, but the cost of petrol is a lot more at the gas stations than diesel. So I've read a lot of blog articles and I read a lot of stuff and experienced it, and I found that the cost, whether you get a petrol or a diesel, is probably the same. It's absolutely the same. But the only difference is that when you have a diesel car, you have to go in to the post office and pay a tax for having a diesel. So we paid $452 and it lasted about 10,000 kilometers. And by the end of our trip, we only had 1,000 left. So that pretty much covered our whole thing. So if you do get a diesel and you plan on staying about 4 months, 10,000 kilometers is all you'll need. and that will cost you about $452. Another couple things that we got initially was, when I buy a car, I immediately get an oil change. Or I do an oil change. But in this case, I had no tools. And it turned out not to be too expensive for the oil change and they did all this 20-point check thing, whatever. So it cost about $100 for that oil change. Oh, and lastly, there's this thing called Warrant of Fitness. So Warrant of Fitness is essentially this thing that they've created to make sure that all the vehicles on the road are roadworthy. So older vehicles, it's every 6 months. Newer vehicles, I think it's every a year. But you have to go in and get your car inspected. This cost us about $34 for just the inspection. Now, if you pass, that's all you'll need to pay. But if you fail, things can get a little bit expensive because in order to drive that car, you have to make sure it passes. So in our case, we had to get a tire, which was about $150, and then we had to get a little brake rubber pad. I guess my brake pedal didn't have a pad on it, so that cost me $15. It just shows you kind of like how technical and detailed these guys can get, and how it will cost you a little bit extra. So just keep in mind that you may be spending a little bit extra on that. Oh, and I forgot one last thing, sorry. Insurance. So insurance is not mandatory. You actually don't need insurance in New Zealand, but it is so cheap that I would definitely highly recommend it. We paid $15 a month for insurance, full coverage, collision, theft, window damage, the whole thing was $15 a month. So I would highly recommend it. There is theft in New Zealand, whether I know it's the safest country in the world or one of the safest, but there is theft. There's definitely theft. I've heard about it, read about it, talked to people about it. So yeah, I just get it. All right, so that's basically everything that you're gonna think about right when you're purchasing the vehicle. You're getting there, you're getting everything sorted. For most people, they would probably be ready to hit the road, but Nina and I decided to take a month. We actually got an Airbnb, which cost us $1,414 for the month, just to basically spend time with the car, fixing it, making it to a home, and also fitting it with everything that we needed, because Nina and I are digital nomads, so being able to be on the internet 24/7 is kind of important. So some of the costs that accrued from that, the internet alone cost us about $200 for the modem and about $65 per month just to have that service. Now, it was a really cool service provided by Wireless Nation because we literally had the modem in our camper van and we could drive the majority of New Zealand, and as long as it wasn't in the mountains, and we would have like coverage, like fast coverage. So it actually worked out really well for our whole trip. Another thing that we needed to have was enough energy to power our laptops and our cameras and everything like that. So we went actually shopping and we got this battery, this kind of like outdoor portable battery called Gold Zero Lithium 400. And that product, along with like a solar panel attachment, powered our whole thing. So it was pretty sweet. That ran us back, that was the most expensive. That cost $1,500. Yeah, but it was really cool running everything on solar power, so. And essentially apart from that, we did some renovations. I built a back wall in the kitchen. We put some extra storage there. There was insulation was kind of loose and flying around. It was that pink stuff, so it caused some irritation. So I went ahead and sealed all that insulation. And then we changed all the linen, so all the comforters and everything, we changed the cloth. We saved a lot of money from going to thrift shops. Thrift shops are freaking amazing in New Zealand, and you can get a lot of great stuff for really cheap. So as for like the picture and just items that we needed in a camper van, it was definitely the top choice. So in the end, the renovations cost us about $500. All right, so now that you're on the road, how much is it gonna cost you? So for us, let's start with gas. So diesel costs about 83 cents a liter, which is about roughly around $3 a gallon. Our monthly average on that was probably between $200 and $400 a month for gas, just depending obviously how much we were driving, what we were seeing, if we were actually staying. Sometimes we just stayed for like a week in one spot. Sometimes we were driving all week. So it does vary quite a bit, but at least that gives you kind of like something. Another thing that's going to cost you on the road is how are you going to sleep? Where are you going to sleep? Are you going to sleep somewhere that doesn't have any amenities, or are you gonna prefer somewhere where they have all the amenities? So basically there's 3 different types of accommodation or camping. There's freedom camping, dock campsites or Department of Conservation campsites, and then holiday parks. So essentially what are the differences of these types of camping is freedom camp is exactly what it sounds like. You basically just camp anywhere. This is completely legal. However, in the recent years, I feel that things have changed a little bit in New Zealand, and some of the locals are not very happy about freedom camping. Unfortunately, because campervanning, camping is such a big thing in New Zealand that a lot of people have came over and abused it by dumping their trash, just being complete a-holes to the local environment and stuff like that. So I kind of understand the locals fighting back because maybe the laws aren't, but yeah, so if you're going to be freedom camping in the city limits or in the town or anything like that, beware that there is a lot of kind of like you may get somebody knocking on your window at night, yelling at your car, or I mean, one time these 2 guys just were streaking through the campervan park yelling and banging on cars. So it could be that, or in another instance, a few locals came and were banging on cars and starting aggressive fights with random people. So yeah, it could be a little bit interesting. So, but not to deter you, freedom camping is legal and it's definitely something you can do, but just be mindful of what kind of freedom camper you are and just be really responsible and nice and try to not create too much of a nuisance being a freedom camper. If you want more information on that, there's definitely more information that you can get. The next one is going to be dock sites, which actually were my favorite. Department of Conservation has a lot of different sites around New Zealand in these beautiful locations. They don't have as many amenities as some of the holiday parks. They are fairly limited. Usually they may just have a loo or a toilet. And maybe a sink sometimes, maybe sometimes a bathroom, but like an actual proper bathroom, shower, but cold shower. That can be a stretch sometimes. I mean, they do exist, and they do often cost a little bit more. Those ones, dock sites cost between $5 per person to $9 per person. So relatively cheap in really awesome locations. Honestly, my favorite way to travel New Zealand was with the dock sites. Oh, and absolutely 0 problems with any locals, because I think locals just appreciate that you are actually spending on the sites that are provided and that have, ways that you can get rid of your waste and stuff like that. The last one and the most luxurious one, which Nina and I found to be, we often went there probably twice a week. Whenever it was raining or whenever we needed to do laundry. But holiday parks. Holiday parks are amazing. They have everything you possibly need. Hot showers, microwaves, toasters, kitchens, pools sometimes. They can be a pretty luxurious event when you are a van lifer. They usually range anywhere from like $7 per person to $17 per person. A little bit more on the expensive side, but you do get a lot, and I would definitely recommend at least doing like planning and budgeting like 1 to 2 times a week, because hot showers feel good. Oh, right, and a big tip is I would definitely recommend downloading the app Campermate. Also, WikiCamps is another version, but I think they cost money. So definitely Campermate. They're free. They give you freedom camps, like they give you dock camps, and they also shows you where the holiday parks are. Okay, so another thing you're probably gonna spend some money while you're on the road is food. So groceries, wine, beer, eating out, enjoying fish and chips and pies and all that fun stuff, that beautiful local cuisine. Actually, the fish and chips in New Zealand are amazing. Hands down, please try to find the best fish and chip shop. It's quite fun. And there's a lot of really great fish. But I digress. Groceries. On average, it costs me about $100 per week for groceries for 2 people. It's not too bad. I love beer, so beer is always something that's gonna be in my van. For about $8, you can get a 6-pack of kind of semi-craft beer. And then if you wanna go full craft beer, it costs around $15 a 6-pack. Maybe 14, somewhere around there. So it's definitely more expensive, I feel, than in the States, but not by much. And having beer is definitely worth it. Eating out can get expensive, but we didn't eat out quite a bit. So for our weekly average of eating out, and we probably did it like once a week, was about $20 per week. And this was probably fish and chips. Yeah, it was mostly fish and chips. Maybe Burger Fuel. If you guys know what that is, it's a delicious burger chain in New Zealand. And they have a lot of veggie, vegan options as well. But yeah, so I don't know if you're into that, but it's freaking good. All right, now for adventures. While you're on the road, you're going to have some adventures. We did mostly free adventures, honestly. We did a lot. We did the route burn track for free, 2 different days. We entered 2 different sides of it. We did the Abel Tasman in 4 days, day hikes through there. We did a Mueller Hut hike. So we stayed at the Alpen Hut, which was super awesome. I highly recommend it. It was about $25 per person to stay in the hut. And the trek was only about 4 hours, I think. Something like that. But you are up there and you get this beautiful view of all the New Zealand mountains. Mount Cook, highest mountain in New Zealand. Just absolutely gorgeous, amazing, definitely worth $25, dude. I honestly, everybody says New Zealand's expensive. I don't see it as much. I mean, okay, helicopter rides were super expensive. It's like electronics are expensive, but a lot of things aren't really that expensive, especially if you're an adventurer, if you're an outdoor adventurer. It's kind of cool how everything outdoors is for the most part free. Even glowworm caves. There's tons of glowworms all over New Zealand. Just go to a cave. If it's dark enough, you'll probably find some glowworms. We did spend about $50 during the whole time because we rented a couple kayaks to go out to Donut Island. It's this super sick island with like a atrium opening in the top and just kind of like a forest, like a hidden forest in this island. Really cool. If you're in Whangamata, you just rent a kayak and go out there. It's a super sick half-day trip. And literally you can just do it by yourself. You don't need a guide or anything like that. However, if you do want to sleep on any of the great walks, you know, either by hut or tent or anything like that, it does get a little bit expensive. I see why, because the DOC, they put a lot of effort into making sure those trails are nice for people coming in. They make sure that it's nice and clean. They do a lot of cleanup and they do a lot of conservation efforts within those parks in order to make sure that the flora and fauna stay healthy and also don't get too disturbed by all the traffic and tourism. So they do a lot of work and I do appreciate their work, and definitely spending that money, I don't feel like I'm not getting the value, because they do so much just for your experience on those great walks. If you want more information on that, you can check the dock site for pricing on some of the great walks. Also remember, in peak season, they do book out of these huts and camping spots and all this stuff. So you do have to make sure that you reserve your spot ahead of time. And with that, we are pretty much done. Now I'm just gonna talk about my experience and kind of wrap up what this whole trip cost of being a van lifer in New Zealand. Our trip from January to the beginning of May, 4 full freaking months of excitement, beauty, and gorgeous we actually had really good weather. Cost $8,629. Now, of course, mind you, divide that by 4, and that's $2,157 per month as a couple. Divide that by 2 for per person, $1,078 per person. That's pretty good. That's really good considering some of the places we visited, some of the sites that we saw, all the adventures that we did. Like, definitely $1,000 a month for that. It's freaking awesome. And having full internet, full Wi-Fi capability. We were working, we were making money as we were doing all of this. Like, I couldn't ask for more. But if you're not a digital nomad, that's fine. We can drop the price a little bit more. We're gonna take away all the digital nomad additions because it was pretty expensive to make that van capable of that. So taking off the solar power for $1,500, taking off the internet, that cost us, for the whole time, cost us $850, dropped the whole trip price to $6,279. Divide that by 4, $1,569 as a couple per month, or $784 per person. Yeah, that's an even better number. And if you want to go super budget, super budget, you can not Airbnb like we did. Like, so we wanted that month of Airbnb so we can kind of come into it, relax, find the van, do the whole thing. But if you want to come in hot, you want to buy your van before you even get there, or even like rent for 1 week, and I mean, you will find a van quickly. Like it's not that difficult to find a van. So if you come in and you're like, I'm gonna rent a hostel for a week, or a private room for a week, and find a van. Let's say it costs, for 2 people, let's just say in my case, for 2 people, it would cost $280 to rent a private room in a hostel for a week. And then instead of, let's take away the Airbnb for $1,414, and then total that whole thing up, it would then be $1,286 as a couple per month, or $643 per person per month to experience New Zealand in a camper van. Holy crap, that is cheap. So traveling is not that expensive, people, and it actually is cheaper than probably your apartment that you live in right now. All you have to do is get rid of the apartment and travel. Yeah, that's harder than it sounds for most people. Not for me. Okay, so anyway, I'm glad you guys watched. Thanks a lot for everything. I hope you benefited. I hope you got a lot of information out of all this, and I will see you guys in the next video. It's gonna be about more New Zealand stuff. So